Welcome to another Autodesk Revit 2025 tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create an architectural and structural model inside of Autodesk Revit. For this video we're going to be using a sample floor plan from a real-life project. The floor plan has a ground floor and a first floor plan, so that's what we're going to be using to model our Revit model. Modeling a building, both architectural and structural, inside of Revit gives you a fair knowledge of how the building is actually going to be connected together. So if you're an architect or a civil engineer or a design engineer and you want to model both the structural framing of your building and the architectural parts of the building as well, this tutorial is for you. I'm going to go through a series of parts for the video. You have to follow it in a particular structure. So first we're going to go through the floor plan itself and try to understand which parts of the building goes where. We'll look at the dimensions and everything. This first step is important to actually understand the building, so you can see the spaces and the dimensions of everything inside the building, and you can look at where the void spaces are, also where your beam structural members are going to pass and where your columns are going to be. Next, we'll look at how to set up Revit to prepare for your structural modeling and your architectural modeling. We'll look at the grids and your levels and your elevations. Then we'll start the structural modeling proper, and after the structural modeling is done, go back to the foundation modeling, and once you're done modeling the foundations, you can then go back to the architectural modeling. Sometimes you can do the architectural modeling alongside the structural modeling, but it depends on how this flow goes. It's going to be a fairly long video, so stick around. After the architectural modeling, we'll look at some minor finishes that you can add to the building that are somewhat realistic. Then we can look at the annotations, how you can put dimensions and add text to the model, add text to the structural and architectural model. Just annotate the floor plans and prepare them for presentation. Then we can look at the presentation itself and how to export the drawing sheets and whatever that you've done with Revit, and how to present your design and present your model to someone else so they can actually understand it. That is the whole point of what we're doing, right? So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and start a new file. This is always the very first step. So go back to new in Revit. In case you're already on your home page, it's going to look very different. But once you go ahead and click a new project, you'll be greeted with this page here. Okay, not this one. I'm going to go ahead and click do not save and say cancel. So this is what you're going to see, and it's going to ask you to either choose imperial, multidiscipline, or metric multidiscipline. Imperial is in inches and metric is in meters and centimeters. So I'm going to use the metric multidiscipline. Revit has now condensed all the disciplines into just multidiscipline. So we have just like 2 templates, but in case you want more, you can go over to browse and it's going to take you to all the other templates, and then you can lock in on your specific template that you want. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to just stick to metric multidiscipline. Let's go ahead and click OK. Revit is going to load up a brand new project for us, and then we can start with that. So here we are. You can see, okay, the parts of the old one that we're still working with. I'm just going to go ahead and close all this. Yeah, don't save that to project 1. And yeah, this is what it's going to look like, L1 architectural. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be using a real life project, and this is what the floor plan looks like. And the very first step you need to go through before you start modeling anything is to understand the floor plan and how you can go about dividing this floor plan into a structural frame. So we have a bedroom here, we have a kitchen, we have a stairway. This is where there's going to be serious structural work going on. And then you have another bedroom here and an anteroom. Then you have the main lounge, which is on the ground floor. This is what we're looking at. So each of these have their own dimensions, and you can see the main lounge is it's like 5.8 meters, and it's also by 4.2 meters. So I took the liberty of sketching a floor plan framework based on this building, and you can see it here. We have the width of this particular bedroom to be 3.725. That is because I'm factoring in the thickness of the wall. You can see that the dimensions here is only 3.5 meters, but that is just inside face to inside face. So you need to actually consider the width of the wall when you're creating a structural model. So we're going to just take this dimension to be 3.725. And then of course the kitchen, you can see that just by the kitchen, there's a straight line here in the anteroom. So these two have very similar dimensions, but when you get to the anteroom, there's 2.4 meters of space for the anteroom. And the kitchen doesn't have that 2.4 space. It just continues for about 4.2 meters. So we actually split the anteroom and took that as the structural frame. So there's going to be a beam running straight across all the way to the kitchen like this. Now that we understand the basic frame of the building, we can go over to Revit now and begin modeling. As I mentioned, we'll be using metric units for this, that is in meters and centimeters. So the first thing we're going to do is to go back to create a grid. Now the grid is going to follow the structural framing that we went on to draw when we were looking at the building and how we understood the building. So once you go ahead and select grid, you can use lines to draw grid. I'm going to zoom into this top corner here. This is where we're going to start our modeling. And we're just going to draw one straight line from down to up. Just select and draw upwards like that. And then go ahead and click escape or press escape on the keyboard. That's going to be our very first line. Now the space between the very first grid frame and the next one is like 3.725. It's going to take the distance of, well, let's say it doesn't matter now, just click another space, and once you start clicking, Revit is going to give you a marker like this. So just go ahead and click once, draw the second line up, and once you're done, select the second one, and then you can go ahead and change the dimensions. By the way, if you roll your mouse wheel forward and backwards, it's going to zoom in and out. So if you want to zoom in like this, you can hold Alt on the keyboard to zoom in gently. If you do not hold Alt, it's going to zoom in really quickly, and you're going to get missing like we did just there. So the spacing between these two is 3.725, but this is in millimeters. So I'm going to write 3725 and press enter. Now that's done, you can also choose to copy the grids. So I can go ahead and select the second one like this and go ahead and choose copy from the modify tab, and then select one point on the grid and then choose the dimension or the distance between the second grid and the third one. This is about 2.625, so we're going to use 2625 meters. It's going to make a copy of the second grid or the third grid this time, and then the last one is at 4.425 meters. So that's our last grid. So this is the basic vertical grids that we have. After this, we're going to go ahead and create the horizontal ones. While the mouse is still loading, you can just press enter on the keyboard and Revit is going to remember the last command. In our case here, it's still copy, but we do not want to copy this time. We want to actually create a new grid. So let's go back to architecture, press grid, click on grid. Then this grid is going to be horizontal. We're going to start from this left-hand side and click and drag to the right. But you see that the horizontal grid is using a numerical numbering. So we actually want this to be in alphabetical order. So I'm going to click escape and select this one and then change this to alpha A. So for the first grid, we're going to go ahead and copy this one as well and find the spacing for the second grid, which is about 4.425 or 4.225. So click that. And then the second one is about 2.425 for the spacing. And then the next one is 6.025. That's the last one. So that's the basic frame for our building. That's the basic structural frame on the plan view. So this plan view is going to give us a template on which to work when we're creating our model. You notice that we're still in the architectural plan right now, but watch what happens when we switch to the structural plan, because we will have to start with the structural model first before we even start modeling the architectural parts of the building. So if I minimize the architectural column here in the project browser and I scroll all the way down, just bring this mouse point and go back to structural plans level 1. You can see L1 that we have the very same grid that we created in architectural plan. So grid follows or copies into every single floor plan that you have. So the grid copies into every single floor plan that you have. If I go back to mechanical floor plan, which I don't really play around very much in, if I click the mechanical floor plan, you can see that the grids that we created is also in that plan. So you do not have to do this every single time. That is why this is the very first step that you take when you're modeling in Revit. The second step we're going to do is to create levels. This could also be the first step, depending on how you choose to do it. Some people do the levels first and then do the grid. Sometimes I do that. But for the sake of this video, I started with the grids. But let's go back to the levels next. Now you can find the levels in the architecture tab as well. Just where you found the grids, you can see grid, but level is currently grayed out. So you can't really click it right now unless you are in an elevation. So to find an elevation, just go back to the project browser and scroll all the way up. And then you can see under architectural, no, there's mechanical, plumbing, structural files. So you go under architectural, and under architectural, you're going to see floor plans and elevations. You can see elevations after floor plans and ceiling plans. You can see building elevations. Let's go ahead and select one of those elevations, maybe east. Go ahead and click the east elevations, and then you'll see the height of the building. It's currently set to default 3.6 meters. That is a bit higher than what we want to use right now, but now that you're in the east elevation, you can see that the levels is currently active. You can go ahead and press or click levels, or you can press LL on the keyboard. It's going to also activate the level command. So in order to create another level, same way we did the last one, just go ahead and click a line and drag. Once you're done clicking the line, it's going to create the level for you. But you can see that under the properties tab, the level does not have any information. So you can see that it has level no head. You can go ahead and change this to level 8mm head. You see that nothing happened. That is because Revit is still trying to create a new level. So we have to just uncheck this option, press escape twice, and then go ahead and select the level that we just finished creating. You'll see that there's still level no head. Go ahead and change that to 8mm. And then you can see the level already populates. So let's just give the dimensions for each of our levels. So for the height of the upper floor from the ground floor, we're going to set that to 3.2 meters. So you can double click the dimension here and say 3200. That's going to just set the level to the correct height that we want. And then for the next level is going to be 3000 meters from the last level. So we're going to just set this to 6000. 3000 plus 3200 is 6200, sorry, not 6000. So that's going to be 6200, and that's going to be where the third level is going to be. Now if you measure this, you can see that this two should be about 3000 meters. Yeah, so that is the level, that's the height that we're looking for. Now that we have the height of the building sorted, we can also input or create a level for the height of the foundation. Now I want the foundation to be about 1.5 meters below the ground level. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new level. This is going to follow the same pattern of 8mm head level. Same way we did, just go ahead and click a space and drag. You can see that Revit calls this level 4, and you can change that if you want. But because I drew it beneath the 0 level, it takes a minus sign, which is what we're supposed to type in anyway. Let's go ahead and click the L4 here, and I'm going to change this to L0 as a name, and then call this minus 1.5 meters. 1500 mm. That is going to be where our foundation is going to be. So this is how you just set up your model so that once you start modeling, you do not have to come back and do this all over again. So let's just name our levels. Let's say L0 is going to be the foundation. Just go ahead and beside L0 write the foundation or footing. Then for L1 is going to be the ground surface. Just put space, ground level, or ground floor. Let's call it ground floor. Then the upper floor here is going to be L2. This will call L2 first floor. Now we need one more level for the roof. Okay, we already have that. L3. So that's going to be L3. Call this ceiling. We need one more for the roof. Now the roof is not going to be too far from the upper level ceiling. But for now, in order not to confuse it, I think I'm going to leave the roof outside of this. So when we go ahead and model the roof can take its own height. So let me not confuse anybody, but we have the same levels. Now, once you're done, you can check your architectural floor plans and your structural floor plans to see if Revit created floor plans for you. But you can see that Revit did not create those floor plans for us. But that doesn't matter. I can actually go into the structural floor plans, select these two, and just press delete. Now that the structural floor plans are gone, you can go over to views, and under views you can go over to plan views, and under plan views go ahead and click it down and select structural views. Now you can see all the views that all the levels that we just finished creating. Go ahead and select the footing to the ceiling, hold shift and select the ceiling. Is going to select all of them, or you press Ctrl A on the keyboard to select all of them. Make sure that you do not duplicate existing views is selected. Go ahead and click OK. Remember, you're on the structural floor plan, so Revit is going to create a list of structural floor plans for us. Now that that's done, you can go back to your project browser and scroll all the way down. You see structural. Under structural, you see structural plans, and all our structural plans have been created for us according to the names that we gave it. You can do the same for architectural. Just go back to architectural plan, select this one and delete, select the upper one and delete as well. Then go back to floor plans and select architectural floor plan, which is the very first one, floor plan. Press Ctrl A. If Ctrl A doesn't work, hold Shift and select L1 or L0 to L3. Do not duplicate. Go ahead and click OK. Revit is going to create a list of architectural floor plans for you. Under the floor plans, you can see all of them there. So to begin structural modeling, go over to structural tab, and under structural tab, just go ahead and select columns. We'll start with the columns. Now, by default, Revit selects a hollow structural steel column. We're going to choose a concrete column that is rectangular concrete column. It's currently set to 300 by 450 millimeters, but that is really big for the building that I'm trying to create. So we're going to go ahead and edit this type. So we're going to go ahead and click edit type. We're going to change the dimensions of this column to be a 225 millimeter by 225 millimeter column. So you just change the breadth and the height. And oops, before you do that, let me just cancel this real quick. We have to actually duplicate the model first, so we do not alter the original that Revit has. So go ahead and click duplicate model and then give this a name by 225 by 225 dimension. So breadth and height is 225 by 225. Go ahead and do that by 225. Once that's done, go ahead and click OK. That is going to give us a 225 by 225. Now you notice that on our mouse cursor we cannot actually see the column. So that's because we are not on a structural view that is going to show us that column. We're currently on a architectural plan. So we're going to switch to a structural plan now. And under structural plan, we're going to start from structural ground floor. Go ahead and double click structural ground floor and select the column again. Once you go ahead and select that column, we should be able to see the column now. So there we go. Let's go ahead and choose every single intersection of the grids, because based on our structural frame, we know that at every intersection of the grid there is going to be a column. So we've designed the grid, or we've drawn the grid to look like that. So every single intersection of this grid is going to have a column assigned to it. So there we go. Now that we have our columns in place, we'll put another column later when we're done designing, or when we're done modeling the beams, so we can know where the other columns will go, because they're going to be connected to the walls somehow. We know that there are other columns extending outside of this region here, and then maybe another one down here. So it depends. So we're going to just go ahead and look at that. So next we have to go over to the structure again, and this time select beams. And under beams, we can see there's a C shape here, but for the sake of beams, I like to make reference to my previous Revit family from a previous Revit year, Revit 2022, one of my favorite versions of Revit. Under libraries, we can see English. We're using English UK version, and under the UK, we're going to scroll all the way down to look for structural framing. Under structural framing, we're looking for concrete rectangular. Go ahead and select that concrete rectangular and click open. It's going to open the component from Revit 2022 inside of Revit 2025. So we can, this one is 400 by 800 for the beam. It's a very massive beam, but that's not the size that we're using. We're going to go ahead and edit type, and remember, duplicate. When you duplicate, we're going to set our beam's dimension to be 225, same dimension as the column as well, and also the same dimension as the wall. But the depth of the beam is going to be about 450 millimeters. So once that's done, go ahead and change the name. When we change the name, we can now change the width 225, depth 450. Go ahead and click apply, click OK. We have our beam assigned to the cursor now. We can now go ahead and draw that beam. Now, making reference to the drawing that we have, there's a beam that runs straight down all the way here, like this. You can find the midpoint of this column here and select that. And we're also going to draw another beam. You see that the beam is still, there's a chain assigned to the beam. You can see that at the top corner here, chain. That means that we can just keep creating the beam, and it's going to continue unless we press escape. So we have another beam running there. Now, at this point, the beam doesn't extend all the way to number 4. I'm going to explain that when we look at the floor plan again. It stops here, and then it continues here, and then here, and here. So that is the basic frame. We might have to reconsider this column right now. So just going to draw a very simple line all the way down as second framing, and then of course one more here. So this is the basic framework of the building, and you can also switch to 3D and look at how this actually appears. But let's just finish creating the beams. I'm going to put another one here and this way. So there we go. That is this basic frame. And if you go back to 3D, there's a top house here. You can go ahead and click that house. It's going to take you to 3D. So you can see our basic frame of the ground floor. This is how the building looks. And the height of the column, or the height of the beam, is minus 250. It's basically ground floor to ground floor. There's no constraints. But if you go ahead and select a beam, you can tell Revit where the beam starts and where the beam ends. We know the beam is going to start from the ground floor downwards. We can see that the base level and the top level are the same. So we want to change that. The base level is not going to be ground floor. The base level is going to be footing. Go ahead and click apply and see what Revit says. So it extends the beam all the way down, but we do not want this to be all the way from the ground floor to the footing. That is the base level, but you can see that Revit has added an additional minus 2,500. If you go back to the east elevation, you can see that it extends beyond our 1,500. So we can just go ahead and select this and input the value of 0 over here and click apply. Once that's done, you can see that it doesn't affect all the other people, but this particular beam here has taken shape. So we can go ahead and, in order to adjust all the other beams or all the other columns that we did, go ahead and select one column and then say select similar, or select all instances in the entire project. For now, you can see that it has also selected our friend here. So we can go ahead and hold shift and select this column. Is going to uncheck that column. So we want the columns to start from the ground floor and go down and stop at the foundation. So at the foundation, go ahead and click footing, apply, and Revit is going to see, do you want to keep elements joined or unjoined? Go ahead and cancel this. Hold on. First, we're going to have to change the base level instead. Sorry. Go ahead and change the base level to footing. Click apply. Revit is going to extend that first, and then once you're done clicking the base level, you can then change this base offset to 0 and click apply, and Revit is going to adjust all the columns to, these columns are going to serve as the link between the building's ground floor and the foundations. We're going to go ahead and create the foundations themselves separately. And now that that's done, you can see what our building looks like in 3D. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this column because I noticed it's not supposed to be here. Next, we're going to look at the architectural floor plan again and see how we can create the beams that run across this region here. There are a group of beams that are here and columns as well. So going back to the structural floor plan, and this is the structural floor plan, we're going to look at the architectural floor plan. So this is the floor plan for the ground floor. We can see that there is a wall that extends from grid number 2 by 4.225 meters. To get this right, I'm going to use a model line. And just go to model line under model here and select model line. It's a green line that you can use and sort of create a reference from where you can walk. So I'm just going to go ahead and select line, and we're going to choose the section. We're going to choose the grid number 2. So this model line is going to run from grid number 2, 420 or 4,225 meters away from grid number 2. So that's 4.225. That's 4,200. But we're going to include the thickness of the wall, so that's plus 225. 42225 plus 225 is going to give us 4,500. So we're just going to go ahead and type in 4,500 over here and press OK. So that is where our building is going, or that is where the wall is going to start from. So for here, we're going to go back to structure and then create another beam. This beam is going to run from this distance here all the way down. It's going to run for about 1,800, and let me just zoom in here. It's going to run for about 1,875 and 1,825 meters. There's also another gap 1 meter away from the very last grid. So that is how we're going to draw these structural elements. So now that we're inside of Revit, we're going to go ahead and draw our beam straight down like this. The good thing about Revit is that you can always edit things. So now that we have the beam, there's going to be another beam that is 1,400 meters away from, or 1,825 meters away from this. But do not worry too much about the distance. So we're just going to go ahead and draw this, and it is 1,000 meters away from, it's 1,000 meters away from the last grid. So now that we're here, we can go ahead and drag this line out to detach it from the beam and draw this one here. Just to find that exact value, so you can see that this is 1,700. We're just going to go ahead and type in 1,225. Remember, we're factoring in the thickness of the wall. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and use the move tool and connect this to the very last grid. There we go. So now that we've established our distance between these two, we can go ahead and select this and then join it to the very last column. If you notice that it's not aligned, just go ahead and select the align tool. Under the modify tab, go ahead and choose align. under the align to select the surface that you want to align to, and then select the surface that you want to align. That is going to align the beam to where you want it to be. At the very end of this beam is where we want to start another beam. Go over to the structure tab and select beam. Under beam, go ahead and click the endpoints from here and then drag it all the way down. Once it connects to this beam, you can go ahead and use the modify tool, or you can press MD on the keyboard. Select this other beam here and drag it all the way back to connect with this one. So that's what we're trying to create. Now that that's done, we can go ahead and select this other beam and drag it all the way to the top, or all the way down to meet with this other beam, and pull this one back. So we're basically modeling what we see in the structure, and go ahead and drag this one back, and there we go. So we've been able to recreate this other section of the structural element. And if you go back to 3D, you can see what we have here. We can go back and assign some columns to these corners. So under the structural framing tab, you go back to column. Under column, we have our 225 by 225. You can go ahead and put one here at this corner, put another one here at this corner, and put one more here. And then we already have a last one here, but we can go ahead and add one in between here and here, and then click modify. There we go. That is the structural framing for this part selected. Now we can go back to 3D. You can see that it follows the exact same pattern that every other person follows. The column is going to start from, okay, it doesn't, so that's good. So it's good that we actually checked. So now that we have checked these two columns, you can go back to the east elevation and find those columns that do not align with the other ones. There are 3 columns that we just finished creating. They are starting from the top floor, or the top level is the ground floor. The base level is also the ground floor, but Revit has added a different base offset for that. So we can go ahead and change the base level to footing, and then add a base offset of 0 and click apply. That's going to assign them to the other one. And we notice that there's still one more here. Just do the same thing. Select this column, footing, base level 0.0, click apply, and we're good. So back to 3D, everybody's looking as they should. Now we've done the right hand side. On the left hand side, there's also a bath, and the end of the staircase that is on the other side. It's about 2000. If you scroll all the way down up here, it's about 2.025 meters away from the very first grid. So we're going to use the same method to model this other part for the staircase. Now I've drawn 2 model lines. I can go ahead and select this model line here. I want to type in a dimension, but you can see that the small tiny dot here is set on another grid. So I can drag this model, or this tiny dot, over to this particular grid. Now on this grid, I want to type the value of 2250 as well. That's going to set our model line to where I want it to be. On that model line, we can go back to beam and then select the beam and show another one here. Another beam that goes straight down. Create this one here, and the last beam that connects to this, that is not correct. Make sure that you always have the beam set on the intersection in case you're not correct or you're not sure about that. Go to the midpoint of the column here and draw it all the way to meet with this one, so you have everything flush. The last one that we're going to do is to go ahead and select this beam and then drag it all the way, pull it like this to connect with this. So we have this other right hand side, or this other left hand side, and the right hand side is already done. What we have to do next is to go ahead and select the model lines, and you can go ahead and delete them. They always serve as a good reference, but we're going to add some columns to this part as well. One column here, one column here, one column here, and the very last column, we're going to add one here. So there we go. We've gotten our ground floor set. This is, to me, the hardest part of this whole business. And let's go back to east elevation. Since we see that some of the columns are not on their correct length, we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing and change this one to base level. Should be L0 footing, and then base offset not. One more person is left. Oops. thing, and there we go. So we're on track right now, to my knowledge. And what we can do next is to go ahead and select all the beams and copy them to the other floors. If you look at our east elevation, we have a first floor and we also have a ceiling. For the sake of this example, we can use the same beam dimension for the ground floor, the first floor, and the ceiling. So it doesn't really matter. Go ahead and select the structural framing for the beam. And you can choose right click and select all instances in the entire project. That's going to select all the beams. You can cross check in 3D and go over to the clipboard here and you see a copy to clipboard icon that is like two papers. So go ahead and click those options. You're going to see the paste option lights up once you're done clicking that. Go over to paste and you can see paste align to selected levels. Go ahead and select align to selected levels. We already have them on the floor, on the ground floor. You're going to paste them on the first floor and ceiling floor. Once that's done, go ahead and click OK. Revit is going to go ahead and paste all those beams. Now, the next group that we're going to assign to is we're going to select all the columns as well. Now, go over to the column that is here on the corner or any column at all. Right click the column and say select all instances in the entire project, just like you did for beams. Go ahead and click copy. Once you click copy, go to paste and then paste the selected levels. For the columns, we're going to align them to the first floor and the ceiling floor as well. Go ahead and click OK. Wait for a few seconds. Now, there we go. We've seen that Revit has gone on to apply these columns, but they're not at the length that we want them to be. Now that we have all the columns for the ceiling selected, we can just start with the ceilings. Now, for the base level of the ceiling, the base level for this is going to be first floor. Go ahead and click first floor. Base offset, we're going to set that to 0.00 as well, and click apply. That is going to just lock the columns to where they're supposed to stop. Next group, you can go over to the second floor. We can do that in the east elevation like this. Now, go ahead and click or go ahead and left click with your mouse and then move towards the left hand side. You're going to see a dotted line. If you go towards your right, you'll see a solid rectangle. If you go towards your left, you will see a dashed rectangle. Go ahead and use this dashed rectangle to move across all the columns that are on the first floor. That's going to select all the columns, but you notice that the grids are also selected. Hold on to shift. Once you hold on to shift, you're going to see a minus sign on your mouse. Select all the grids to unselect them from this command that we're about to execute. Once you have all the grids unselected, you see that only the columns are left. Go over to the options here, the properties panel over here. Change the base level of the columns to ground floor. Then go ahead and change the base offset to 0.00. Click apply. That locks the base level of the grids. Now, we've basically completed the structural framing of the building as per beams and columns. All that is left to do is the column, and all that is left to do is the slab, and also the foundations. But let's jump to the foundations first. Then we'll come and do the slabs. So under the footing, you can go ahead and click footing. So you can see that we have a column sticking down on every footing. This serves as a reference for us. It's basically BIM 101. So for footing, you can see a foundation tab here in Revit. We're going to use an isolated footing for this. Go ahead and click isolated footing. There's a huge footing right here, 1.8 meters by 1.2 meters by 450 in depth. It's massive, but that's not the size that we're looking for. So we're just going to go over to edit type as well. Go over and duplicate this one. The depth is going to be 450. I think I like that. But for this, we're going to use 1 meter by 1 meter. Change this to 1 meter as well. Just for the sake of simplicity, to be honest. 1 meter by 1 meter. You can go ahead and change this to 1 meter. 1000 millimeters, same as 1 meter. You can allow the depth, the foundation thickness to be about 150. So, or about 450. Go ahead and click apply and click OK. That's going to give us a very simple square footing. So go ahead and select the center of each column that was created, and now we have our footing. Where is it? There. Now, when I get to this point, you can see that using two rectangular footing here or square footings is not going to be really nice. They may just clash into each other. For this one, I'm going to also go ahead and let's hit escape first. Escape twice. Now you can go ahead and select isolated footing again. Under isolated footing, go over to edit type. We're going to edit this to 1 by, let's just use this 300, or let's say 900, sorry, by 1800. So this is basically a rectangular footing, right? So just for simplicity's sake, for the width of the footing is going to be 900. For the length of the footing, the longest side, 1800. So go ahead and click apply. Click OK. So that's going to add another footing for us alongside our 1000 footing. So 900 by 1800. So you can see that it's rectangular. So just press space bar to flip it. Once again, it's going to give us like this. That's going to just put the combined footing on both sides. You can do that for the same here. Once you get to this part, you can still use the rectangles because, or you can still use this individual. Hold on, this one did not actually assign. There we go. Yeah, for this other columns, we can use the normal footing that we had. So let's go back to isolated footing, select 1 meter by 1 meter, and just apply those footings to this. There we go. So now that we have our footing, we can go back to 3D and see where our footing is placed. There are parts of the building that do not have footing assigned. Oh, the very bottom, we actually forgot these guys. They were not appearing on our screen, so just go back and add them. And that we did forget. So now everything should be as it should be. So we have our structural frame, we have the ground floor, we have the top floor and the upper floor. This is basically going to serve as the roof beams. All we have to do now is put the slabs. We can go and add the slab. Now this slab is going to serve as the ground floor slab. You can go and see structural slab, but let's just do structural slab itself. Now that we have our structural slab, you can see it's a 150 millimeter slab. But I didn't just want to place this as a concrete slab itself. We're just going to go back to edit the tab a little bit. Go to edit tab. We're also going to duplicate this and call it structural. There's a foundation slab. We're going to call this floor slab instead because we want to turn it into a floor. It's not just a concrete deck that is sitting there. So to do that, we're going to look at the structure. We're going to edit the structure. You can see that it's cast in place grade to 150, but we want it to be about 200 mm. So we're going to go ahead and add a finish. You can change the structural core boundary to finish, and you can move this up all the way to the top. We can make this 12.5 maybe, and change the material for this to maybe, let's try tile, porcelain tile. It's actually quite thick for porcelain tile, so you can just put cement, any form of cement. There's cementitious backboard. Go ahead and click OK. You can go ahead and insert another finish, finish 2 or finish 1 this time. This one can also be 12.5. Let's say 175 mm, and change this to tile. We can change our structural beam to 175, so it's just thick enough. And then now that we've created the structure of the floor slab that we want, it's not just a concrete deck of slab. Go ahead and click OK, and click OK again. Now we can draw this as a ground floor. You can use the line tool or you can use rectangles, but I'm going to use a line tool. I'm just going to start at the corner here at the endpoint. Every endpoint is going to be represented by a square. If you did not meet the square, it means you're not yet at the endpoint, where you can guess like I just did. And then to go all the way to the endpoint, select that, and then the next one, select this. Find the endpoint, select, and go back to the next one, endpoint, endpoint. I'm basically drawing the slab along the lines where the beam were. There we go. enter, and then click accept. Revit has access that we haven't yet saved our project. You can go ahead and just click save. There we have our slab in place. So if you go back to 3D view now, you should see the slab. Let me just press tab a few times. To create a section, go to the top where you had the 3D view. Right beside you, you're going to see a section. Go ahead and click section, and you can draw a line straight up like this, depending on how you want the section to go. Once that section line is drawn, you can search inside of your Revit project browser and you will see a sectional view. If you do not find it, it's going to be under the architectural tab. So uncheck the architectural tab. I don't know why they put it inside the architectural tab. It should be inside the structural tab because I've not yet created any architecture yet. But section 1, there we go. So we can see the way this section, with the way the beam and the floor actually connects with each other. For now, we mostly just see the beam, but if you go ahead and select this beam, you can see that there's a line dividing the beam, which is where the slab is actually sitting on. So we've been able to create our structure, but it's only for the ground floor. We've only done the slab for the ground floor. So we do not need the same slab that is on the ground floor to be on the top floor. So we're going to have to go to the top floor itself under the structure. Let's just close the section tab for now and close the footing tab. And then we can go over to the structural plans. Under structural plans, you can select first floor, and then we can draw a separate floor for this, because this floor is going to be an actual floor, not just a structural floor, but it's also going to have a structure. We're going to use the 225 also, but it's going to be, we're going to have to edit this generic 300. Go ahead and duplicate this. Let's make it generic 200 and go ahead and click OK. Then edit the structure for this one. First of all, is going to be 150 here. We can choose to use a concrete cast in place gray for the structure of this slab. But there's a, go ahead, cast in place gray, click OK. Now we can go ahead and insert a finish. For this, first of all, we can go ahead and put a membrane layer just before the finish. It should be below it ideally, but that's not a problem. We can actually move it. You can see damp proofing. Go ahead and select damp proofing and then move it below the structure layer. The membrane layer is usually 0.00, so that's just for example purposes. Finish is going to be the next. We can move the finish up, change the core boundary to finish number 1. Under finish number 1, we can go ahead and put tile as well, or carpet. Let's just use tile. Tile mosaic gray. And you can go ahead and insert finish number 2. And turn on carpets. Scroll all the way to the top and turn on carpets. Click OK. Carpets can be 5.0 in thickness. It's going to be 12.5. Then for the bottom of the slab, it's not just going to be concrete in there. So we're going to move this down to another structure layer. And we're going to change this from cast in place to a white gypsum wall board, just to represent the ceiling. Okay, you can have that maybe 24 or 25 thickness. Let's try 28.5. That's 196. 31.5. 32.5. Yeah, that just gives us, this is a gypsum wall board that's going to act as the ceiling for the upper floor, or for the ground floor ceiling, because the upper floor is going to be a slab and not just wood. Go ahead and click apply and click OK. That is what the slab is going to represent. Now, it's very different from the slab that we have on the ground. It's also a structural slab. It's an architectural slab, sorry, but it has a structure as a core. So you can go over to just draw it the same way we did for the other one. Go ahead and select around like this. Just go around it, choose this one and do the same thing here. Meet the endpoint. Wherever you see the square is an endpoint. If you do not see the endpoint, you can guess. And then there we go. Once you have everything set, go ahead and click finish. And you should have a separate floor plan there. Now, the two floors are very different from each other. So at the top, we do not really have another floor because that's going to be where the roof and the ceiling is going to be. But that is part of the architectural modeling part. For structure, I think we're done with the structure. There's no shear wall. The only thing that is left to add now is a sort of structural opening for the staircase. So we can go to the level 2. So now that we're done creating the structural model and adding the columns, the beams, and the slab, what we want to do next is to create a space for the staircase to pass through. So let's just go over to the structural floor plan. If you go back to the structural floor plan, let's say ground floor, we can see that the staircase is going to be somewhere around this region. So here's the first floor plan. If I zoom into this part here, you can see that the staircase is in this area here. But when we created our structural model, we have a beam running across like this, all the way to connect with this one. And in reality, is that beam is actually going to appear in the staircase, and it may cause a lot of problems with people crossing the stair. So we're going to have to cut that beam out and allow the beam to stop somewhere here, and then on that beam is going to continue this way. Then we can go ahead and create a space for the staircase. So back inside of Revit, this is the ground floor. We're going to go over to the upper floor because the ground floor is not affected. We're going to go ahead and select structural plans L2. So this is the beam. We're going to have to split this beam in half. So you can go ahead and select the beam first and then go over to the modify tab. On the modify tab, you're going to look for split element. Go ahead and click split element and then just split the beam in the middle like this. Click once, it's going to split the beam in two. You can go ahead and select one half of the beam and then drag it down to connect with this at the midpoint. Select the other half and connect it this way. So now we have our space for where the staircase is going to be. We now want to cut the slab to create an opening for the staircase. Now I've been trying to select the slab here, but I can't really select the slab at this point. So I'm going to actually go over to 3D view and then hover close to the beam and the slab like this, and then try to select the slab. If you can't select it, just press the tab key to switch between the beam and the slab itself. Go ahead and select the slab. Once you select the slab, go over to the edit mode here under the editing and shape editing. Under mode, go ahead and edit the boundary of the slab. And for that, we can go back to L2, which is the first floor. And we're going to draw a rectangle across this region here. You can go ahead and select the rectangle tool and then go over this way, zoom into the region where the staircase is going to be. That's between B and C. Let's just zoom in between B and C. Go ahead and pick this point here and draw your rectangle across like this. Now the rectangle could intersect the other boundary line for the floor slab. So let me just go ahead and drop it this way in between that point and then just click stop. Then we're going to just press escape once and then select this end of the slab line. Go ahead and draw this line all the way up to meet that point there. Go ahead and select this one. We're going to take it all the way back. Go ahead and select the second one and then drag it or just delete it all together. And then we can use this, pull this over to the left hand side and then pull this over to the left or downwards like this. And there we go. This is going to create an error for us. So let's go ahead and delete this other option. Then drag this one to connect with this line here. And then delete this line altogether. So that is the new boundary for our slab. So it's going to essentially we're not going to have a slab running in this particular region of the building. So if I go ahead and click accept, finish, edit mode. If you go back to 3D, what you're going to see is that at this point here, we have a slab. So the slab does not continue here. We have a slab opening at this point where the staircase is supposed to be. And then the slab continues as normal on all the other parts of the building. So we've essentially created a space for where our staircase is going to pass through and come to the upper floor. Now that we've gotten our staircase done, we can go back to the architectural floor plan and start drawing architectural walls. To do that, let's just close the structural floor, ground floor, and structural first floor. Now all we have is our 3D model in space. You can go over to the project browser and scroll up a little bit to find our architectural floor. We'll start off with the ground floor first. And on our ground floor, we can see that we still have the grid, thank God. And the grid is going to help us model the building. Oh, look at our model line. We can go ahead and delete this first. But in order to get the exact floor plan, we're going to need to import the sketch of the floor plan that we have. You're going to go ahead and import the drawing just for accuracy reasons. So we don't always have to go back and forth between the image and the Revit itself. We can head over to the insert tab, and under the insert tab, you can look for link image, or you can even import image as well. So let's just try import image, and under the import image, you can go ahead and look for a cut. You can look for that floor plan image. Let me just check my computer, maybe it's on the desktop somewhere. There's the cut floor plan, and go ahead and click open. So we can go ahead and place it anywhere. It doesn't matter at first. Once you place the floor plan anywhere, we can now scale it down to match the grids that we have. So looking at the floor plan that we have here, the very first line of that floor plan is on this region here. Is that matches with the very first, let's say, line A of the grids. So you can move it like this manually and just arrange it until you have it directly on line A. It can take a bit of doing, but just be gentle with it. There we go. I just scroll a little bit. Now we can scale it in a way that the bottom line D of the grid matches with the very last line here of our building grid. So let's just hold on to this. Click and drag, and then drag it all the way back. See where that stops? So we've exceeded it. So let's just bring it down again. We're very close now. So there we are. So it may not be perfect, but at least we have it where we want it to be. So we have the grids on line D, and then we have the grids on line A as well. So let's now align the very first grid number 1. That is aligned to this particular beam here. So we can zoom in a little bit. Now we can drag the image to the right hand side. Oops. So there we go. So we have something close to what our building is going to look like. Now we can just use the building as a reference and go ahead and draw the walls for the architectural walls, first of all. So you can go back to architecture. For now, we're going to use the building as a reference. When we're done, we're going to delete it afterwards. You can start with a wall, and we have basic different types of walls in Revit. There's generic 200, but remember our wall is 225 in thickness. But if you go ahead and use 225, the wall itself might be clashing with the beam and you can have a graphic error. So let's just go ahead and edit the type of this wall. Go ahead and duplicate this one and then call this generic 225. For our sake, I'm going to call it generic 226. Type in 226 mm. Go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to edit the structure of that wall. For the structural category, we can first of all add the material. We want it to be a concrete building or just cement. Or we could try wood, whichever one. But for the sake of using concrete, we can place concrete lights. Let's say lightweight concrete. Or CMU split face. So let's just try this instead. CMU split face, and then go ahead and insert another layer, call it finish number 2. Under finish number 2, we're going to insert the gypsum wallboard for this one. Just scroll down a little bit and find the gypsum wallboard. Click OK. We're going to give it a thickness of 12.5 mm. Then for the another finish, we're going to put finish number 2. Change this to finish number 1, I guess. Yeah, we did finish number 2 before. Take that down to be the second layer, or to be the last layer, and then change gypsum wallboard again, and then call this 12.5. What we're essentially doing here is, if you look at the preview, we've essentially created a wall where inside the wall we have a CMU split face, and then on one side of the wall we have a gypsum wallboard 12.5, and then on the other side of the wall we have another gypsum wallboard 12.5. So I want it to be 12.6, so I'm going to add gypsum face to be maybe 201. So that gives us 206. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So essentially we have the wall face on both sides while we have a concrete structure or a CMU structure inside. That's going to just leave us the universal thick wall of 226, which is slightly 1 inch or 1 millimeter above 225. It's going to serve us as a practical example for this one. Go ahead and click OK. Now we can start drawing the wall following the pattern that we have here on the floor plan. So you can start from here, click a line. That line goes down to the next column here. Click another line here. Essentially, we're just following the floor plan itself. The next building, the next wall stops here. Don't worry about the wall that is sticking out. We're going to get to that one soon. Now this wall is 225 from the very last one. We can always edit it, so just draw the line as you see fit. Connect it to the next bar, and then onto the next wall here, and to the very end. Follow along, very simple. Okay, we've made an error in that last part. And go ahead and hit escape twice, and then just drag this wall to the very top or the midpoint of this one. And like we mentioned, you can select the wall that you want. Press CS to create similar and just continue creating the chain of the wall. Go back to the midpoint of this one. So we're almost done with the boundary of the wall. Once we meet the very first wall, we're good to go. Point here. There we go. So we have our boundaries created now. The next thing we need to do is to create the internal wall themselves. And we have one coming down from here. Thanks to the grid, we already know the measurement of each one. So you can have this wall this way. And connect this one to this other beam here. Press escape once. Let's just escape twice. You can select this wall. As I notice, there's another wall coming this way. So just drag this one down. We also have another wall sticking out this way, but the dimension of that wall is given from is 3.4 meters from this one. So we're going to have to select this particular wall here. Let's escape once, select this wall, and then drag this wall all the way to the end. Meet with this other column here. That's essentially all we're doing. We can select this other wall, create similar, CS on the keyboard. Okay, instead of dragging that wall down, we already have a wall here. So we can drag this wall all the way up to meet this one. Do the same thing here, drag it all the way to meet this one. So I see here that our wall is not exactly where I want it to be. That's not a problem. We did our best. Or you can just use the directional key once you select the wall and move it towards the right. If it doesn't move correctly, you can just delete the wall. And see where the error is here. We drew this wall too far away from the center of this one. So it's supposed to be here. We'll stop at the very top, at the very center. And just go ahead and go to architecture, click wall, start on the center of this one, and draw it. Most of all you do is Revit is just editing and revising what you have done already. So that's how you get the perfect model. So we see a slight issue here that this wall is not really exactly on the grid as it's supposed to be, but that's not a problem. The floor plan that we have on paper is not exactly to scale, but Revit is actually measuring by the dimension. So we can just drag this wall over here, get it to the midpoint, and press CS to create similar for the wall. Then start at the midpoint of this one and draw a line straight up to meet that point there. It's reasonable that way, as you can keep the column and then continue that way. So we know that there is a wall that sticks up 3.4 meters away from this particular beam here, or this particular wall. So you can use the model line tool. Let's look for architecture, press escape once. Use the model line tool and draw a line 3.625. That's essentially where our wall is going to start from. So you can use the architecture now, go back to wall, create a wall from here, and just drop it in there. So press escape on the keyboard and draw this one all the way this way. So there we have our wall. So all that is left to do now that we have all the walls created, we have one sticking out at this corner here. So we have to create one. You can see the dimension of this wall that is 2 meters by 1.3. I know it's quite small, but let's just follow it. Let's just pick a random point. Let's say midpoint from here. So just pick a midpoint, 2 meters by 1.3. and draw it all the way back like this. We'll have to add a door to that effect. This is how I'm going to go about creating the upper floor plan. That's basically how I go about creating the ground floor. It's the same method I'm going to use to create the upper floor plan. But before we go and fast forward to the upper floor when it's done, you need to look at the building when it's created. Looking at the walls that we created, you can see that it extends all the way up to the ceiling, but that is not exactly how it is. If you go ahead and select one of the walls that we see here, you can see that this wall is all the way to the top unconnected, but we need to connect this wall to the ground floor. So the base constraint of this wall is the ground floor. The top constraint is supposed to be the first floor. So that's how it's supposed to be. So for now, I'm just going to use the easy method. Right click on this one, select all instances in the entire project. That's going to select all the walls for us. Once that is selected, we can go over to the first floor, lock it to the first floor and click apply. That's going to lock all the walls to the first floor, and then we're going to go about creating a new set of walls for our upper floor. So now that we've done the ground floor walls, I'm going to add this other wall outside here and some foundation and footing column for it. We're going to go ahead and do the upper floor. So to do the upper floor, we're going to go over to the L2 first floor architectural plan, and we can see the grid lines. This just serves as a very good reference for us. So just like we did for the first floor, we're going to go ahead and import the floor plan for the upper floor. Go over to insert. You can use import image, and let me just scroll to where I have my image saved on desktop. Yeah, I did a cut floor plan 02. That is the first floor. Just go ahead and import that. Then just like we did for the first floor, we can paste it in at random. Then we can go ahead and scale this down to match the floor plans grid that we have here inside of Revit. So the up line that we see here is going to be the first grid on line A. So we can just scale that down a little bit until it's close enough. It doesn't have to be super perfect. It's just acting as a reference. It's not the actual drawing itself. So let's just drop this one down a little bit. So there we are. And so this is close enough. So we can see that the slab here is sort of hiding most of the other internal walls that we need. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide this slab. In order to do that, I can use just select the slab first of all. Oh, that's selecting the image itself. In case you can't see the slab, just once you get there, press tab to switch between elements. And then now I have the slab selected. Once the slab is highlighted, go ahead and select it. Then right click on the selected slab. Oops, if it does that, just repeat the same process until you have it selected. Once you have that selected, right click immediately and then look for hide in view. Go ahead and hide it by elements. Now once the slab is hidden, we can go ahead and draw the frame we can draw the walls, the internal walls. Now for this particular building, I'm using one type of wall like I already showed you before. I went ahead to create a generate 226 wall. So we can just draw that wall around the building, and we can start from here, point A, like this. Start from the midpoint of that column. Draw it down this way to the next midpoint. So here we can see that there is a veranda, so there's no wall on this side. It's probably going to be like a railing. I'm going to just ignore that part and then extend the wall all across to this part here, and then continue like this all the way down. Make sure we have the midpoint selected, and we can continue to this column here. If it doesn't show that you have the midpoint, if you don't see the endpoint, know that you may not have the midpoint selected. So I'm just going to have to delete this because I know it's not correct. Just go ahead and change the click wall again and make sure you have the midpoint so you're on track. Even this other building, even this other wall here that we see, it's not really correct, but we can use the align tool like I showed you before and select the surface that we want to align. That's this last edge here, then select the wall itself. It should align it to where it's supposed to be. So most of Revit is just adjusting everything that you create. It should be adjustable. So we can continue creating our wall. Go ahead and choose architecture wall, then go back to the floor plan and continue starting from the endpoint. Draw a wall. This one actually goes all the way up to the top, and draw that this way. And you see here that we have a building that goes after 1.4. It continues for 2.575. So you can select this point 2.575. You can just draw it to the end, because unlike the other building that was zigzag like this, that continued drop down, bend this way, this one actually goes straight all this way like this. So you can drag that and continue all the way till it connects to this part. Once you're done, that's the end. Now we have to go ahead and select these 3 columns because they do not exist in the upper floor. They just stop at the ground floor. So you can select these 3 columns and change the top level from ceiling to first floor, and then click apply. It should disappear from view. You can see that it cannot join the elements. So go ahead, yes, and unjoin those elements, and they should disappear from our view. So they will not be in the 3D. So once that's done, we can go ahead and continue. Let's continue our wall from here. Go ahead and select this one and join that wall here, and join it all the way down to this point and connect the wall here. So all that's left to do now is to draw this other wall. This wall is 1.7 meters away from the particular grid line A, or you can say it's 2.3 meters from grid line B. So you can actually use a model line to do this. So you can go to architecture, create a model line. Now from this particular grid line here, 2.7 or 2.3, sorry. So that's going to be adding 2 to 5 to factor for the wall. That's going to be 2.525. That gets us exactly where we want it to be. So architecture, go back to wall and draw a wall from this point all the way here. There we have our wall. Go ahead and select this one and connect it with this. Very good use of the model line. So go ahead and delete this model line now. So there we have our wall. There's going to be a door over there. So the next thing we want to do is to extend this wall all the way down and then connect it to this line. So go ahead and draw an architecture wall again, and then start from here all the way down to this one. Make sure it's at the midpoint. Go this way, connect it down here. Now remember, at this point we're going to have to stop. That is like 4.2 meters. So if we, in case you want to factor in the wall, but since we're already starting from the center of the wall, there might not be any need to do that. So we can just select 4.2 and drag it this way. There we go. So this is going to be our veranda. The beam runs all the way down to the other side. So what is left for us to do now is to extend this wall by 2.8. Okay, it's not exactly 2.8. It's 1.625. So we can go ahead and extend this wall by 1.625, or we can draw another one by 1.625. So select this. That's going to give us 1.825. Extend that wall, and you can have this by, it says here 1,600. And draw it this way. So there it is. That's the building that we've been working with, and we've got the first floor all drawn now. You can press escape twice and go to 3D to see what it looks like. It's slightly different from the first floor. You can see that most of these things do not align. Also, if you look at it in 3D, you can see that there's no column that is actually supporting this other end of the building. And we can see the beams from before. We can go ahead and select these beams. They are not supposed to be here anymore because we do not have columns that are on this other side. We've already deleted those columns. So we can also go ahead and delete this beam here, and we can select this beam or use tab and make sure you have the beam selected. Once you select the beam, we can extend the beam all the way to the end of this particular wall. There we go. You can also do the same for this beam here. Go ahead and select it and extend it all the way to the end. There we go. Now we're not completely done. There's a wall here that we need to add, and that wall is 2.825 meters from the edge of this wall here. So you can still use the model line as our reference and then start from here, maybe from the midpoint here, 2.825. That's going to be 3.025 if we're adding 225 to it to factor in the wall. So we have where we want that wall to start from. We can just use the architecture and wall command again. Select the midpoint of this model line and draw it straight across like this. To clean this up, you can just drag the edge of the beams. So just go here and drag this edge of this beam to the center. And do the same thing for this other end. Center like this. So we've got that covered. Now we just have to tidy up a few more things. There's a wall here. So we can go ahead and select this wall. And then extend it all the way down like this to connect with this one. Then the next is to select this wall again. This other wall on this other side. And just drag it this way. We do not yet know the dimensions of that wall, but since we have the floor plan and the walls are kind of covering the floor plan, we can make reference to the image. From here, we see that this wall is 1.4 meters away from this particular wall. So we have 1.4 meters here by 1.7 meters. So over here, we can extend this wall or even draw another one since we're going to have to measure it 1.4 meters from this part. 1.4 by 1.7, that's accurate. So we have everything flush on that particular side. So to deal with these other walls that are not overlapping with each other correctly, we just have to take a trip to the floor plan itself and actually understand how they connect with each other so we can go about modeling them correctly. So this is the ground floor plan, and we can see that this wall comes all the way down like this, and then it cuts inside and has a smaller corner here. It's almost like a toilet. An outdoor toilet. So you can see it's 2 meter by 1.6 or 1.8. 2 meter by, I can't see what that is, but it's a small one, so we're going to assume 1.8, so it's not too small. Then if you look at the first floor plan, the same beam goes all the way down like this, and then it has 1.6. Okay, let's just stick to 1.6. If this one being 1.6 is a lot bigger than the last one, so the ground floor plan is going to be about 1.3 thereabout. So this is 1.6 by 1.625. So what we have to do is find a flush. We're going to have to flush the last wall here, this other wall that the mouse is pointing at. We're going to have to flush this last wall together. They are going to be on the same line. And then this one runs all the way 1.6 to the very last line here, the main B, line B or line 2 of the grid. And then the smaller space, we can go ahead and merge that one to where it's supposed to be and create a floor that it just overlaps the other side. It's going to look a lot better inside of Revit. So in order to align this correctly, we're going to first of all pick this particular wall. Not on the top floor, sorry. We're going to pick the ground floor wall, this particular wall here. But in order to see this correctly, you can go over and use this view cube. It's the front here is the S elevation, which is south elevation. So you can scroll to the elevations page on the project browser and then open the south elevation. In the south elevation, we can see the wall that we have gone on to select. We can go ahead and align this wall with this particular wall here. So go ahead and select the align tool, pick the edge of this wall that we want to align, and then select this one. Okay, that didn't actually go ahead and align the wall, which is scary. So we can try a different mode or try a different view. Let's try the ground floor view. In the ground floor view, we can go ahead and delete this particular image right now. And what we're going to do is use a view frame. And what we're going to do is use a view range. So under view range, we're going to select the base level to be the ground floor. And then the range level top is going to be the first floor. So for this one, instead of looking down, we're going to look up and go ahead and hit apply. It's going to show us what the upper floor looks like. Now you may just see the walls and you may not see the upper floor yet. What you have to do is go over to view range in the extents and go ahead and edit that option. Now these are the dimensions for what you are able to see. The cut plane now is cutting at 1.2. So we want to increase this value so it shows us items that are above this. So let's say 3000. meters from this. Go ahead and hit apply. It says that the top clip is set above the cut plane, so you can go ahead and change this option here. So the top is not going to be ground floor. The top is going to be the first floor. And go ahead and hit apply again, and we should be able to see it now. Let's increase the cut plane to 4.2 meters. There we go. So at 4.2, it's able to show us the upper floor now. Go ahead and click OK. We can always edit that and change it whenever we want. Now we can see on the ground floor, we can see the upper floor. So what we have to do now is go ahead and select the wall. This is the basic wall on the ground floor. We can go ahead and align this wall. Click the align tool, select the property that we want to align, and then click this other wall here to align it. Oops, we did it the other way around. We're going to have to first of all click the element that we want to align to, then choose the element that we want to align. That should align the wall flush. Now that we have our walls aligned, we have to make sure that the beams and the column that are down there are also aligned with the wall. So we can go to the ground floor. I still don't like the way this is aligned, so I'm just going to first of all choose this and then choose this. Yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. So in 3D, it should be aligned that way. We can also go ahead and change the columns as well. Pick this beam here, and it's the property we want to align to. So first of all, we're going to select the wall here, then use the align tool, select this surface, and then select this one. We'll also have to move the beams and the columns and the footing as well. So for now, let's just look and make sure that we have the lines straight up. So if you go back to 3D view, this is the way it looks. These two are flush. And if you look at the front view from the left side, we can see that this one being 2 meters, this one is also, it's not up to 2 meters as well. So we're going to have to just align these two for it to be correct. Use the align tool, select the surface that you want to align to. Then select the surface that you want to align. That's going to just push this the way it's supposed to be. Go back to the ground floor plan and see that everything is flush on this side and it's looking clean. However, in 3D, you can see that if you move the view cube this other way, you can see that one wall is slightly bigger than the other, but it's correct on this particular long line that is here. So all we have to do is just make some corrections to the columns and the footing that is over here and make sure that everything is as it should be. We have to go down to the structural floor plan. This is what it looks like when you're trying to create a structural model and an architectural model inside of Revit. For this one, it's pretty basic. You have to just hold on to the column here and just drag it to make sure it connects with this. Once that's done, do you want to unjoin the elements? Yes, unjoin those elements. We'll have to go ahead and create the column again. You can go ahead and move this one to this other end. Make sure it's flush with this. Now we can use the ground floor as a reference and make sure we find out the distance between the internal wall of the ground floor to this other end. Now remember, this is supposed to be maybe 1.3, so we can make sure that this internal wall here is set to 1.3 meters. Let's just say 1.2. If it's still not much different, you see that the dimensions even on the floor plan were not super accurate. So we can go ahead and just make these two the same. So you can use the align tool now, select the surface that you want to align to, then select this other surface to make sure that the walls are correctly aligned. So they just have the same thing and we do not have to stress ourselves going back and forth. Now that we have both floors the same, we can just align the columns on this other downside here to make sure that everything is correct as it should be. So with those adjustments, I'm going to add the columns and everything is looking clean as it should be. We have the architectural walls, the structural columns, the structural beams, and we can also look at this in any conceptual ribbon, or we can go and look at this in any conceptual view to see what the building actually looks like. You can see our veranda, we can see the floor, the carpet. You can also see that we have a missing floor over here for the upper floor. I haven't gone ahead to complete that, and you can just go ahead and make this adjustment. If you go back to the ground floor, or sorry, the upper floor, let's just go to the upper floor architectural plan. Under the upper floor architecture, we can make changes to this concept as well and shows consistent colors. You can see that we have missing floors over here. So all we have to do is head over to the floor and select the floor itself. You can use tab to change and always select the floor. If it doesn't select, you can do it in 3D. Go ahead and select the floor. Just press tab when you're close to the floor like this. It should make you select the floor. There we go. You can just use tab to switch and select the floor. For the floor, we can go ahead and edit boundary. And once you edit boundary, you can switch back to the first floor. Now that we are in the first floor, we can go ahead and adjust this for it to be correct. Let me just make this, go ahead and delete this option that we're having here. So in 3D, you can use upper floor like this and just use the tab key to see if you can go here and then select floor. Now that we have the floor selected, you can edit boundary and go back to the first floor. Just go ahead and delete all these other lines that are here. And then just join these two lines using trim and extend tool. And accept that option. And ask you if you want to attach, go ahead and attach. It says that you can't keep the floor joined. Go ahead and click on join. And if you go back to 3D, you can see the floor has been completed as it should be. So we can see our building coming out nicely. What we need to do now is to add the railing for the veranda and also add the doors and windows. We don't really need to add the furniture, but we can go ahead and add the ceiling and create the roof just to wrap it up. The furniture is something that eventually you can go ahead and add based on personal preference, but in order not to allow this video to get too long, we're going to focus on adding the veranda railing, doors, the windows, and the ceiling. So for the veranda railing, we're going to have to go to the architecture first floor because the veranda is both on the first floor. There's one veranda on this side here. There's another veranda here. Oh, there are actually three. There's a third veranda this way. If you go and look at 3D, there should be a third veranda. So there are actually three verandas, not two. So yeah, there are three. So on the first floor, we're going to start off with this side here and do the veranda. To do the railing, go back to circulation, and under the circulation, you're going to see railing. You can use sketch path for the railing. And once you go ahead and select rail, you can choose the rail from the properties that you want, and then go ahead and choose. You can use a glass bottom panel fill. I think I'm going to use the glass fill for this one. And once you go ahead and choose the railing, you can then zoom in and just select this corner here, this corner here, the railing, and make sure that the railing's base level is floor. Base level is the first floor, and go ahead and click accept. You might get a warning that says that Revit has a duplicate type mark values, but do not really worry about that. You can head over to 3D and rotate to this side and see there's our glass bottom panel railing. I had the veranda railing for this side, so we just have to do it for the other two. So go to level 2 floor plan and just repeat the same process: railing, glass bottom panel. Click this part here and select parts. So that's one other railing. Accept, and yeah, one more glass railing. So, and put this part here, go this way, just accept. So all our three railings should be done. We have three rails for the veranda. Next, we can go about doing the doors and the windows, but to do this correctly, we have to make reference to the floor plan. We can see the method and insert the floor plan. This time we do not have to match it up with the image itself. We do not have to match it up with the sketch that we have in our building. So we can have, there's this floor plan for level 2, floor plan 2. You can just have that. You can keep it by the side, honestly, and just use it as a reference. And we can see that at this point, we have a door here at this small corner here. So you can go to architecture and select door. This is likely a bathroom or toilet door, so you can use the smallest door that we have, interior passage door. That's 750 by 2000 meters, but I'm going to use 750 by 21 because I want all the doors to be 2000 or 750 by 2.1 meters. So that's going to be the size of the door that we're going to use. And we're going to follow the orientation of the door this way. Press spacebar to rotate the door. Take that in there. So the next 750 door is going to be another bathroom. So we'll look for the next bathroom that we have here. There's a study door. There's another bathroom over here. So we can go ahead and select this one and press space. Put that in there. Those are the only 2 bathrooms that I have seen so far. Okay, there's a third one. Wow. There's a third one down here. And we still have to add a wall. So we're just going to put this bathroom here. It's quite close to the veranda, to be honest. But in order to finish this, you have to select this and create another architecture wall. Notice there's a wall here that leads to the veranda. We completely forgot about this wall. Just pick one here and join it this way. So we can move the door a little bit. So there we go. It says here that it's 1975, so we can choose this to be 1975. It clashes with the door, but do not worry, just move the door a little bit to one side. You can press spacebar to fix the orientation of that door. What they have here on plan is not even correct, so let's have it this way. Also another door for the veranda, but the veranda door can be a slightly bigger door. So you can go ahead and select door and choose a 900 by 2.1 and see how that appears. It's a small veranda, to be honest. It says here that this distance should be 1.975. So we can go ahead and change this and use 1.975 as well. To bring that down a little bit, that should give us some space in the veranda. And we can extend the path of our railing to cover that as well. So this is what you do in Revit. Just adjust until you get everything right. That is how Revit actually works. So we can go ahead and use the 900 door for this passage here. Go ahead and add another 900 door for this room. We can go and add another 900 door for the study. And of course, there's an entrance door here. This leads to another veranda. So, but this door is different. It's actually a single panel with one small side. So we can, this one you actually need to load it from the library. To do that, just go back to load family and choose where your Revit family is. I'm currently using the 2022 versions. So we're going to use English UK doors. And under the doors, we can find external door. This is not an internal door now. Go ahead and select each of them and just scroll down to see which door we're looking for. It's a single panel door, but it has a one small sider. So hopefully we're going to find it in the UK doors. If it's not there, we'll have to check the US variant of doors. So it's not in UK. Let's check US doors if they have that pattern of door. So there's a double wall here. Nope, not available there. Let's check residential doors. Make sure that everything is as it should be. Wow, so we can't find that panel of door, so we're going to have to use another one. External, let's just use an external door. These are wide double doors. External 900 by 2.1. These are glass doors. Okay, for the sake of normalcy, let's just use a single door 900 and put it this way. So those are all the doors for the upper floor. You can first of all go in here. If you see this floor plan, there's a space here. It's not actually a wall covering this. So you can drag this wall and put put it this way. Also delete our model line, and we're slowly finishing everything up. Even the staircase that we see here, this beam is not supposed to be here, so you can just drag that all the way back. Oh, it's my, what do you call it? This is the view range that is actually showing, so I can't actually touch that beam. That's nice. So we're now on the ground floor, but you see that the ground floor looks exactly like the first floor. So we have to change that. It's because our view range is set incorrectly. It was set to look up before, but I've set it to look down, but we still have the same view. So you'll have to go into the view range settings and edit that setting. And we can change the value of this to 1200. So 1200 above the first floor. For the associated level, you can set this to maybe 1.5 meters. So that way we're just locking the cut plane to within the ground floor. So go ahead and click apply. That's going to give us back what the ground floor is supposed to look like, because we're not going beyond it. So there we have the ground floor. You do not see a floor in the ground floor because it's a structural floor, and that only appears in the structural floor plan. So all you have to do now is go ahead and input the doors for the first floor. First, to have a reference, you can go ahead and insert the image for the first floor to serve as a reference, or for the ground floor, sorry, just drop that somewhere by the side here. That's going to serve as our reference. You can just move it away a little bit, and then go ahead and add architecture door. Under the door, you can have one external door. Okay, we're still using single passage for 900 for the bigger doors, and then 700 for the smaller bathroom doors. So there's one door here, external. That's like a kitchenway. There's another door here. But we see that the space is too small. You can use a smaller door. Let's try the 750 by 2.1. That door is swinging inside. There's another bathroom door here, so 700. We can switch back to the 900 door by 2.1. We see here that we've not completed the wall, the internal wall for the ground floor, but that's not a problem. We can always go ahead and complete that. Even here, there's supposed to be a wall extending all this other way. So everything is just going through the floor plan, making sure that you have everything as it should be. Once we extend that wall, we can come in here and put a door that's heading this way. So also we see that there's an opening here into the dining area. A wall opening is not the same thing as cutting two walls or creating a space between the wall. You can use, it's actually a door. So I'm going to go ahead and select this wall and drag it all the way down, just to create the opening So you can go to door again, another door. You should see let's say load family for doors. If you do not see, select your 2022 Revit and English UK doors, structural door. The door opening is actually structural door. Go ahead and click open, and once that's in, you can go ahead and choose this, and we can always edit it. Let's look for different spaces. That one looks like a wide door opening, so the widest they have here is 915 by 213. So you can go ahead and edit this and say duplicates. Instead of using 915, we're going to use 1315 by 21. This 1315. Click apply, click OK, and there we go. So we have our wall opening that's leading into the dining area. So the next is to create a door for this main lounge. I don't know why the door to the main lounge is so small and the dining is on the other side. It makes really, I won't really want to do it like this. But since we're following orders and we're following the floor plan, we can stick to the floor plan, and then 900 by 21, and drop this way. And then the entrance door, since we do not have our one-sided door, we can use the 900 door. And next is to put the door for this room somewhere around here, very close to the main lounge door, almost on the same side. So to fix this part, it's not going to be too difficult. You just have to use a wall. Go to architecture wall, and the wall is 1.3 meters away from this particular line, and also 1.6 meters away from this line. So you can go ahead and stand here and say 1.6 meters. That's 1.6 by 1.3. Right that way, and then cut it this way. So this wall, there's not going to be a wall here. We're going to extend this wall all the way down to this one. And of course, we're going to go ahead and add a door, 900. See that looking at the dimensions that we have on the book, on the floor plan, it doesn't really make sense when you model it inside of Revit. It looks like that space is really, really small to be 1003. So let's just select this space. Okay, it shows you that it's 1074, despite the fact that we type 13. So you have to go ahead and type in 13 from here. Revit is going to go ahead and adjust that. Let's make sure this is 16 as well. This is 1374. It's supposed to be 1600. So once you type that in, you've gotten the exact measurement that you're looking for. Now, mind you, 16 extends. Okay, this line extends all the way down to 1.975. So we're going to use another wall here. 1.975 away from 1.975 away from you. Have a wall going this way. Now we know that that is not exactly 1.975, so you can go ahead and obviously edit it afterwards. So you can select this and make sure that the value that you have here, in case you do not have the dimensions the way you want it to be, let's go ahead and select the tiny dot, and you can move that tiny dot around. We want that tiny dot to be here, and we want the second tiny dot to be, first of all, let me remove this, select this wall and make the other tiny dot. Remove this, not the wall, just the dimension. You need to pick this dimension here. Okay, since it's not allowing me to pick it, whenever I click it, it just selects the dimension itself. I need to just move this one over here and then move the second one over here. So that's 179, but it's supposed to be 1975. There we go. So that is the dimension. We need to put a door in here. So go ahead and select door. This could be a 750 door. 750 by 21. Place that in there. So that is all the doors for the ground floor. So you can go ahead and start adding the windows from here. For this window, we can use there's a 600 window here, but we're going to just use a normal casement. Let's say 1000 by 1.3. Go ahead and see how that window, okay, it looks slightly bigger than the one that they have in the floor plan. So we go back to 800 by, or let's use the 600 by 1.5. Yeah, this looks slightly better. So there are two windows on this building here. Let's just use a 700 on this side, 700 on this side. There's also another window here, but we see that we have a wall in the kitchen where a wall shouldn't be. So we're going to obviously change that after adding the windows. So there's another window. There's no window by the staircase in this other bathroom. There should be a bathroom window for some reason, but I don't know why there isn't. Let me just tweak that. And we're going to add 600 by 900 to the bathroom. Let me go back to 600 by 1.5. Okay, there's another bathroom here, 600 by 900. Add that in there. There's 600 by 1.5. All the windows in this building they seem to be small windows. There's another one here. That's all the windows for the ground floor. We can go ahead and drag this kitchen wall back this way. We have our space for our kitchen. So you can go to the upper floor and add more windows as well. So 600 by 15. There's two windows here. There's one window here, and there's a door to the veranda. I forgot to add that door. There's one window here. There's another one here. There's another one here. One window here. There's three in this other room. So the main lounge has the most windows, which is logical because it's the biggest room in the house. So if you look at our floor plan, we're not adding the windows now. If you look at our floor plan, there's supposed to be a wall that connects the study, that closes the study. So, but we do not have that wall in here. So you can just go ahead and draw the wall. This is why I kind of love Revit. You can go about doing a lot of things, and it's just going to update in every single view that you have. This wall connects this way. It means that there's another door in this bedroom over here. Where we notice there's a wall, small wall sticking out here. I don't know the purpose of this wall, to be honest with you, but that's how it is on the floor plan. So you can go ahead and add this is supposed to be the 900 wall, the 900 door, because it's a room. So 900 by 21. I'll flip it on the other side. Okay, let's have it this way. So okay, I remember the purpose of this. This wall actually acts like a wardrobe area. So there's one more window to be added here. There's another window by the staircase here. Let's just put them on equal terms. So now that we've added most of the windows and most of the doors, or we can go ahead and delete the floor plan now as a reference. If we look at the building in 3D, you can see that we've already added everything to bring the building to life, basically. We can go about putting the annotations and adding the dimensions, adding the rooms, and making sure that everything is clean and looking good, and make sure it's actually presentable. Now you notice that we have some windows and doors that are not assigned to any floor, but that's because we're using a view range that shows us those windows, but they are not actually showing us the floor or the wall that is assigned to those windows. So we have to find a way to hide these people or change the view range in a way that it doesn't show those doors and windows. You can see that we're on the ground floor, but this window is set to first floor. So we have to go to view range. Under the architectural properties, go to view range. Go ahead and edit the view range, and then we can change this. So this setting, if it doesn't go away, you just need to go to the view range top level associated and just go ahead and put bounded and just click apply. I'm going to just make everything disappear. You can go ahead and use look down as well and just click apply. So if you try everything in your view range and you can't really get all the walls to go away, go back to the view range setting. Under view range, go ahead and edit it, and then the top floor, remove the top level from being the first floor and then set it to the associated level, which is the ground floor. So everything in the view range should be set to ground level. Go ahead and click apply. That's going to make everything else disappear. So you only use the top range to be upper floor in case you want to see something from the upper floor. If you do not, make sure you just go ahead and set everything to the ground floor. So that's going to just give us a clean ground floor plan. So what we want to do next is to go ahead and annotate the building, add some dimensions. To add dimensions, you need to go to the annotate tab. Under the annotate tab, I recommend that you use the linear or align dimension. That's very, very good for what we'll be able to do. So go to align dimension. Oh, Revit is asking us to save. And to do this with the align dimension, you can just go step by step. So first thing we're going to do is to actually put the thickness of the wall. So you can go ahead and add this wall to this wall. That should be 226 as we want it to be. And we can add another thickness for this one here. So that's the very first thing we're going to add. We're also going to go ahead and add the windows dimension. This window is 600. All the windows are 600 to be honest, but we can use Windows tag to show all of them. Once we have our windows settled, we can go ahead and add the spacing of the walls. I'm going to use internal face to internal face. So let's use the spacing of this wall, internal face to internal face like this. That's 3499. You can also choose to use grid to grid, depending on how you prefer to go. Let's see which one looks nicer. Let's try grid to grid 3725. Okay, I think I like grid to grid. So let's use grid to grid. So click this one. Just bring this down a little bit. Now we're going to use the align dimension again. Go over to aligned. Yeah, this is better. Grid to grid is a lot better. Like this, like this. We're going to go, since we're on the ground floor, we have to go ahead and choose this one. And we're going to do the same thing here. This for, and the last one is this one. We can't really use the grid at this point because we've changed. So let's just use this point here. Better. So that's the method I'm going to use to go ahead and dimension the entire building myself. To save us some time on the video, I'm going to just go ahead and move that real quick. So I've done the dimensions for the first floor as well. Now we can just jump in and do the rooms. And to do the rooms, you have to go back to room and area. For the first room, just go ahead and click room. And then if you go into an empty space that is combined like this, a space that is completely surrounded by walls is going to have a room. If you go and click a place like this, it has to be surrounded by walls. If it's a place that is not surrounded by walls, you can't really have a room assigned to those places. So let's just start with the very first room here. Just go ahead and click. It's going to give you room 1. This is a veranda, by the way. It's also going to have a room because it is surrounded by the railing. I think the Revit actually considered that to be a room as well. But for now, I'm not going to click that. Let's go ahead and click this room. And there's another room inside of here, which is the bathroom. It's really small. And there's a study over here. And this is the stair room. But the stair room and this other space here is quite different. So you have to use a room separator to do that. Let's just go ahead and complete all the other rooms as well. Once that is done, this last one here, it's quite stubborn, but let's just get that in there. Oh, it's not, you see, Revit says it's not a properly enclosed space, which is the veranda. So we can't actually put a room in there. We just have to name it. So we're going to just exit that. And then for the stairway, we have to divide this using a room separator. Go ahead and select the room separator and then just click the line that is here and draw another line this way. I was going to draw a line, an orange line that you can see as a room separator. So even though there's a space here, we can select this room and then it's going to give you a separate room here and here as well. So let's just click this to be the room. Now, I think to solve the problem of the veranda, we can use a room separator at this other end here and just draw it like this. With that line in there, we should be able to create a room in this space. There we go. So that's the veranda. We can do the same for this other one and just use a room separator to draw that. Once that is in there, we can go ahead and create a room and put it in there. So the ones I know of are the veranda. That's one, and there's another veranda here. Oops. So the font for the room is quite big and it's kind of overwhelming. So we could obviously change the graphics of the font. You can change the font size, the font, and everything. So to do that, you have to just select a tag, like a room tag like this. And you can see room tag here. Go over to edit type. Under edit type, you can see all the other options that you need. But apparently it's not in here that you do the change of the settings. You have to go into the family. So once you have that selected, you have the room tag selected, go over to mode, say edit family. Once you go over to edit family, it's going to take you to a Revit family workspace where you can go ahead and edit these options one by one. So for the room name, we can select this, and then under this, you can see a tag label 3mm. 3mm is quite big from what we've seen in the floor plan. So you can go over to edit type, and you can see the dimensions and everything here. So let's just create one that is maybe 2 or 1.5. Let's just say 2mm. Click OK, and then change the text size from 3 to 2. You can also take the tab size over here. You can change it to maybe 7 or even 10. Let's just use 10 for this one. You can also choose to make it bold or italic, or even change the font size. This is currently using a trebuchet font. If I want Revit to go and use an Arial font, all I have to do is just change the font over here and look for Arial. There's area black and normal area. Let's use a normal area font. And you can see the leader and border offset. This is really far away. So I want it to be close. Let's just set this to 1 millimeter. So it's not too far away. And background transparent. Do you want to show the border? It doesn't really matter. Color is going to be black. Width factor is going to be left at 1.0. Every other thing is going to be the way they are. Just go ahead and click apply for our 2mm. Click OK. So that's the new room tag. So we can select this as well and say instead of using the 3mm, use the 2mm. For the volume as well, everybody should use the 2mm. So there we go. So once we go ahead and make the changes here, we can accept those changes and load into the project and close. If you want to save changes, go ahead and click yes. It's going to ask you to save a new one. So you can save a new room tag. Let's call it 2mm room tag, wherever it is. And once we jump back into Revit, you can see the new tag that we're using now. But you can see that in Revit, it's still for some reason not adjusting some of them. So we can select this one. It's using a room tag. So you can look for the room tag that is 2mm. So you can see the room tag that 2mm. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this and say select all instances in the entire project and change the room tag to room tag 2mm. Once that's done, everybody is now bearing the new tag that has the area font and everything. So that is how you go about changing font inside of Revit and changing the room graphics, changing the text size, font size, and any other thing that you want. So you can go about changing the rooms. This room is actually a bedroom, so let's just be sure of that. Bedroom. So we have the veranda already. There's another bedroom here, study and anteroom, and another bedroom on the corner. Then there's a study hall. So there's another bedroom here. We have the anteroom. Here is actually a void space for some reason. So you can just put void. And in case you notice that the room is clashing with the dimensions, just go ahead and select the room label or room tag and just move it somewhere else. It's going to be clearer and more readable. So these are bathrooms. And call this bathroom. Then that's the veranda as we saw before. This is another bedroom. And this is the stairway, stair hall. So that is how you go about adjusting all the room names. This is a study. We forgot about the study. And there we go. So bedroom, bedroom, study, anteroom, everybody is void. Do the same thing for the ground floor and the first floor. Just go ahead and make those edits and you're good to go. So that's the way we go about adding rooms and labeling those rooms and changing the dimensions and also the font size and everything. Once you do that for the first floor and the ground floor, you're good to go and ready for presentation. Obviously, there's a lot more you can go and do and make your Revit a bit posh. Go ahead and prepare it for proper presentation. But for the sake of the length of this video, we covered the core of creating the architectural plan and the structural plan and combining both into one structural element, into one main building. And we've gone on to annotate them. We can also go out and annotate the structural floor plans. This is the structural floor plan in G1 ground level. To annotate that, you can use structural tags. You can see there's a beam annotation here, and then there's also tag by category. Let's go ahead and use tag by category. Once you select that, it will immediately go to the beam. You're going to see that it's a 225 by 450 beam. If you go ahead and select the footing, it's going to give you the footing tag. If you go ahead and select the column, let's use a column that is here, 225 by 225 column. Since all the elements are the same, we can just use that for easy purposes. You can see 150 slab. You can go ahead and tag the slab as well. If you want to manually tag the structural elements, you can use text. So you can go over to text and select text over here. Once you go ahead and pick text, you can use 2.5 Arial. I'm going to just drop this if there's a smaller one. Okay, that's the smallest 2.5 Arial. You can just choose to create a text over here. Drag a text box and say call it C1 for the column. And select all and then make it bold. And that's C1. So all we have to do at this point for column 1 is to go ahead and copy this option and copy it from this corner here and go to every single column and paste C1 over there. We all know that C1 is 225 by 225. There isn't a column here. So, okay, there's one here. There's another column here. There's another column here. So in case you want to use this method and just target column by column, go ahead and do this. And this is just how you go about doing it. This one here. Yeah. You can repeat this process for every single structural floor plan that you have. Go ahead and assign text and then copy the text in case you have the same beams or you have different beams. You can go ahead and write the text and then copy it and paste it to the proper beams that you want to present as the correct beam. So this is how you can go about doing annotations and annotating your structural floor plans. Now the bulk of the work is done, we can start preparing to export the building and send most of this drawing into well-prepared sheets that we can export and print out and show to somebody as a presentation. We have done most of the animations, but in order to wrap this up real quick, we have to go ahead and do the ceiling and the roof so we can actually have a complete building. So to do the ceiling, we can go to the first floor plan, or we're already on the ceiling plan. We can go ahead and select the ceiling plan. And you see that we do not have any ceiling at all for the building. So what I can do is going to project the first floor plan and see if we can have some of those beams come up, and then we can use that to create the ceiling. So at the first floor, we can go back to view range. Where is that? Under view range level, you can see the base level is going to be ceiling. And the top level, or let's use the base level to be first floor. And the top level is going to be ceiling. And looking down, we can go ahead and hit apply. Now, once you go ahead and hit apply, we can see the walls or where the ceiling is going to be. You can go back to architecture and then ceiling. Under the ceiling, you can choose, first of all, the property of the ceiling. I'm going to use a wood flooring ceiling, or let's say this ACT system, 600 by 600. When you go ahead and select that, you can choose to either use automatic ceiling or you can choose to sketch your ceiling. For this ceiling, I'm going to use sketch ceiling. So we're going to start, and we want the ceiling to actually be inside the walls and not inside the beams. So you can go ahead and start from here, from one of this corner here, and then just draw all our way around. Stop somewhere here and go around like this. This one actually continues. Okay, we want the ceiling to be outside as well. So come back, just Ctrl Z and continue the ceiling like this, because that's the veranda. There's going to be a ceiling where the veranda is. Come all the way outside like this. And stop this way. Remember, there's another veranda here, so we can just come like this around it. But this end, no, it's not correct. And pull this until it meets this one. Let's just start this way and then draw a different line. Use the line tool and draw. And use trim and extend to clean that up. Move this way. Oh no, that's the wrong one. So from here. And pick the line and continue from here. At this point, there we go. So once the ceiling is done, you can go ahead and click accept. When the ceiling is created, you may not be able to see it on the ceiling plan yet, so you can go back to 3D. Now you can see our ceiling, it's way above where we want it to be. But anyway, we have the ceiling set on the ceiling level. So we have to go and adjust our ceiling level. Now we want the ceiling to be inside the first floor. So if you go back to first floor, okay, first of all, let's go over to the elevations. Under the elevations, just pick one of the elevation, maybe east elevation. You can see where the ceiling is, and the ceiling is seen as a ground floor itself, which is, well, ideally this is my roof. I want this to be the roof anyway. So this ceiling that we're creating is for the first floor. So we have to change where our ceiling is. I want our ceiling to now be inside the first floor. It has a height of 2.6. So you can go ahead and click apply. Now we can actually see, if you go back to 3D view, you can see that it's inside the first floor as it should be. So we can go ahead and change go to the elevation and change this and call it L3 still. And let's call this roof. So this is where the roof is going to start from. So that's seen as a floor in itself. Do you want to rename the corresponding views? Yes. So the ceiling is part of the first floor. It's not a roof, or it's not part of a ground floor on its own. What Revit sees is that Revit sees this plane here as the beginning of where the floor actually starts from. So if we put the ceiling here, we need to create a ceiling in such a way that it is inside the first floor. So that's why we've gone ahead and made those changes. Now if you look at it in 3D, we can go ahead and create a roof for this. Now to create a roof, we're going to need to use the first floor, obviously. But you can go over to the build part of this contextual ribbon in architecture. Go ahead and select roof. You can choose roof by footprint, roof by extrusion. We're going to use roof by footprint. All you have to do in this sense is to pick walls. Now, in order to do that, first we're going to define where the slope is going to be. There's going to be slope on all sides, and we'll see how that actually appears. We're going to set an overhang of about 600 mm. I'm going to check this option that says extend to wall core, and you can go here and we're going to use pick walls. Once pick walls has been selected, you can select this wall. It chooses, let's see it in the ground floor view. That's where the wall is, so you can choose this one. So you can just go around the building, choosing, and make sure you select the outside face. If it does something like that, it shows the wall inside. You can just control, like undo that option and pick this other one. Want the roof to be outside. Here's another error, unjoin those elements. And we can go ahead and click this one. You have to click on this other side to draw the roof on this side. So if you click on the inside, it's going to draw the roof on this other side. So that's not what we want. So now that we have this, there's also another veranda here. Go ahead and select this roof and select this part of the roof as well. Like this one, we still have to manually go around it and draw and edit. So select this, like this, and this, then this wall, and this wall, and this wall. We're trying to do a gable roof, so now we can go about editing the roof itself. You can drag this line all the way back, even this line as well, drag it all the way here. You can use the trim and extend tool to join this too. If your roof looks awkward when we go ahead and create it, there's no problem. We can just always change the roof sketch and have something better that can actually work. Drop that in there, and this one. What's this part? Use the trim and extend tool to clean this one up. Clean this one up. You can use modify to just drag this. Let's drag this all the way down this way. So there's our basic roof footprint. For any other edits that we need to do, use the trim and extend tool to clean this one up. Trim and extend to clean this part. So that's what we have. If we look at it in 3D, that's what the roof looks like. It's currently seen on the ground floor. It should be on the first floor. Go ahead and click first floor and then apply. Once we're done, you can go ahead and click apply and see where the roof actually appears. So you can see that the room is seen on the first floor now. We can go ahead and change this and move that to the roof. Click apply. So we now have our roof on the building itself. Now there are some edges that are incorrect, so we do not consider the level floor number 2. So we can go to the roof footprint and then edit this and go to level 2 floor plan. And this is actually better, so we can use this blueprint instead. You go here and use the trim and extend to select this one first and then select this one next. And every other element in here we are going to delete. Select this one, select this one, select this one. Or select and press enter, then delete, select this, press enter and delete. Like this as well. Delete and select this one. Then so it's good to create the roof based on the first floor. Everything on the ground floor may not be considered. So if you create the roof based on the first floor, go ahead and click apply. So there's the new roof. If you go to 3D, you can actually see the roof. It appears correctly now. So we've covered most of the work, and all we have to do now is to put this on drawing sheets that we can present and export. So to find drawing sheets for you to go ahead and do your exporting and presentation, go over to the project browser. Under the sheets tab, you can see sheets. It's under sheets all. Just click the drop down plus. You can see different Revit sheets, and in Revit 2025, the sheets are divided into floor plans, elevations, sections, enlarged views, details, schedules, site plans, and all. A101 and 102 is for floor plans. A102 or A201 and 202 are for building elevations. A203 to 204 are for other elevations. A301 are for sections, and the rest of you. So if you go ahead and click A101 for floor plans, this is what the sheet looks like. In order to get your floor plans in here, you can actually arrange them in 4 different parts. So we're going to start with the footing and all you have to do is just click the floor plan and then go ahead and drag it out and put it on the sheet like this. And Revit is going to just hover around, and then you can go ahead and just click and you can have the floor plan in there. So you can also have ground floor. You can, instead of just double clicking, you have to actually click and drag. If you double click it, it's not going to move in. So just click the ground floor and drag it all the way to the sheets. Easy like that, just click it in there. So I've not annotated all the floor plans for the sake of this video, if not it would have been too long. So whatever you do in Revit, if you go ahead and drag a floor plan, let's say the first floor plan, for example, you go ahead and drag it in here and just drop it. It's going to be the first floor plan. Just make sure it's aligned. If you go ahead and drop this floor plan here, whatever you do in the floor plan is going to automatically update on the sheets. So that is the power of Revit. So let's just drag the last roof and drop it in here. There we go. So make sure that everything is aligned as it should be. You now have the sheets all selected. All you have to do now is to go over to the sheets that you have in Revit Sheets. In order to export this, you just need to go to the top bar here and look at the very top tools. You can see the print option right beside the PDF option. You can choose to create PDF of a sheet. You can also just choose to plot it directly to a printer, which can also allow you to choose the PDF option. Let's go ahead and use print. Under the print option, you can see Microsoft Print to PDF. That's what we're going to choose, and you can select the sheets that you want to do. You can choose to print all sheets, but we're not printing all sheets. We only have one sheet that we worked on, which is one A101. Go ahead and select that sheet, and you can see all the other sheets are listed here. What I like to do is to check none, first of all. And you can see Revit is showing us hide unchecked sheets. Just go ahead and unhide that. And look for A101 architectural floor plan. So select that sheet. And just click that one to select. Are you sure that you have saved the setting for the settings? So this Revit session, do you want to save this settings for Revit's future sessions? I'm going to use no because I always like to choose my settings all the time. So that has been set, and now that we've chosen that option, all you have to do that is go ahead and click OK. The other options that you can go into, you can click the printing setup to see how it's going to look. I want it to be landscape, yes. Every other setting here is as it should be. Go ahead and click OK. Revit will tell you that you have chosen to print only one view on sheet. Do you wish to continue? Yes. All you have to do now is give it a name. I'm just going to call this RW RV 2026. Just to give it a name. You can save it to desktop anyway, and then click save. That's going to export the file for us to use it and present to somebody else. Everything is default. So if you go to the RW file that we went on to export, this is what it looks like. It's looking really clean, and it's a PDF file that is very adaptable. So as you continue zooming out, you keep seeing every graphic material that is in there is always going to render out as it should, really clean and crisp, and you can print it on any printer that you want. That is the entire process that you can go about using or creating a structural model, then creating an architectural model and annotating your model and presenting it in a PDF file that you can show to somebody else.